My name is Vivian Park. I'm 37 years old. On my birthday, a Tuesday in October, the kind of gray autumn day that feels like the world is already moving past you, I opened my phone to a notification that made no sense at first. You have been removed from family. Maine. 14 seconds later, my mother texted me directly. Sweetie, the group was getting too cluttered. We're reorganizing. Hope you have a nice day. And below that, a string of messages I was never supposed to see, because she had forgotten that I could still see the last 40 minutes of the chat before I was removed. 40 minutes of my family discussing whether I was too sensitive, whether my negativity had been affecting the group energy, and whether my birthday was, in fact, a convenient time because, and this is my father's message, word for word, she won't make a big deal of it on her birthday. She never does. But what my family didn't know was that in 6 weeks, my grandmother was hosting her 80th birthday dinner. Every branch of the family invited, 47 people. And she had already asked me to say a few words on her behalf. I had 40 minutes of messages saved to my phone. Before I tell you what happened at that dinner, please like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy this story. Drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from and what time it is there. I love hearing from all of you. Now let me take you back to where this all started. Growing up in a Korean-American family in Pasadena, I learned early that there were two categories of person in our household: those who kept the peace and those who disturbed it. My mother, Jung-hee, ran the family's emotional temperature with the precision of a thermostat. My father, David, deferred to her in all social matters and compensated by making pronouncements about practical ones. And my younger sister, Claire, had been the family's designated sunlight since approximately the age of 4, when she smiled at a stranger in a grocery store and my mother said, "That one knows how to make people feel good." I was 12 when she said it. I was standing right there. When I was 19, I was accepted to a full academic scholarship at UC Davis. Tuition, housing, the full package. I called home from my dorm room, hands shaking, voice cracking. My mother said, "That's wonderful." My father said, "Claire got into her first choice high school today." Claire was 15. Her first choice high school had a competitive admissions process. I told myself they were just excited. It was big news for her too. I was being self-centered. When I was 26, I published my first peer-reviewed research paper in a public health journal. It was cited 4 times within the first year. I framed the journal page and brought it to Thanksgiving. My mother looked at it, said, "Is that a big deal in your field?" and set it against the wall, face in, to make room for the appetizer spread. That same dinner, Claire announced she was getting promoted at her marketing firm. The family toasted with actual champagne. I told myself it was more tangible. People understood promotions. Research papers were abstract. I shouldn't need the validation. When I was 33, I went through a divorce. It was quiet and mutual and still one of the hardest years of my life. I told my family in February. My mother said, "I hope you're not going to make this a whole thing." My father said, "These things happen." Claire texted me a single heart emoji and then, 2 days later, a photo of her new apartment kitchen because she thought I might need some positive energy. For 4 years, I had lived in the group chat trying to be lighter, funnier, less. I sent memes. I asked questions about other people's lives. I celebrated Claire's engagements and promotions and home purchases with a genuine warmth I had carefully maintained because the alternative, being seen as the difficult one, felt worse than being invisible. But all of that was just preparation for what was coming. My birthday that October. Tuesday started normally enough. I woke up, made coffee, opened the group chat to say thank you to whatever birthday messages had come in overnight. There were none. This was unusual but not unprecedented. I told myself everyone was busy. I sent a gif of a small dog wearing a party hat into the chat, just to mark the day lightly. No response. 4 hours later, the notification. You have been removed from family. Maine. I stared at it for a long time. Then I read the 40 minutes of messages still visible at the top of my screen, the tail end of a conversation that had apparently been happening most of the morning. My mother. She's been bringing down the mood lately. Always something. Claire. I know. The divorce stuff went on forever. My uncle Stephen. Just remove her for a bit, she won't notice. My father. She won't make a big deal of it on her birthday, she never does. My Aunt Linda. Is this mean? It feels a little mean. Claire. It's not mean, it's just boundaries, LOL. My mother. Someone do it before she sends another sad article. And then, Jung-hee has removed Vivian from the group. I sat on my kitchen floor, which is not something I have done before or since, with my back against the cabinet and my phone face down on the tile. I stayed there for a while. I am not going to tell you I didn't cry. I did. I cried for about 20 minutes, and then I washed my face, and then I did something I had never done before in my life. I took screenshots of every message, all 40 minutes of it. The sad article comment, the "she won't notice," the "it's not mean, it's just boundaries, LOL." I saved them to a folder on my phone and then to my cloud storage, because I am a researcher by training, and I understand the importance of documentation. Then I called my grandmother. My grandmother, Soon-Yi Park, is the reason any of us exist in this country, and she is also the only person in my family who has ever looked at me with the specific attention of someone who finds you genuinely interesting. She came to California in 1974 with $40, no English, and what she describes as a very good sense of direction. She built a dry cleaning business. She raised 3 children. At 80, she walks 2 miles every morning and does the crossword in pen. She had called me on my actual birthday, at 7 in the morning, before the chat had imploded. She had sung to me, off-key in Korean, the way she has done every year since I was born. When I called her back that evening, I told her what happened. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, in the precise English she uses when she wants to be unambiguous, "Vivian, at my dinner you will say whatever you need to say. I give you full permission. Whatever you have been holding, put it on the table." "Halmoni, I don't want to ruin your birthday." "You could not ruin my birthday," she said. "I am 80 years old. I have survived harder things than your mother's feelings." I said, "I'll be there." "I know," she said. "You always are." I spent the following 6 weeks working. I am the director of a community health research center, and we were mid-cycle on a federal grant. $2.3 million over 3 years, the largest in our center's history. My team had been building the application for 8 months. I submitted it 2 weeks before my grandmother's birthday. The preliminary decision came back in our favor 10 days later. I did not call my family to share this news. I had been removed from the group chat. No one had reached back out except my mother's reorganizing text, and 2 weeks later, a forwarded recipe from Claire with no context. I printed the 40 minutes of screenshots. All of it. 6 pages, standard font, page numbers in the corner. I put them in a manila folder in my bag. I drove to my grandmother's house on a Saturday evening in November, with the folder in my passenger seat and the grant approval letter in my coat pocket, and the quiet certainty of someone who has decided to stop performing smallness. My grandmother's house in Alhambra seats 14 for dinner. For her 80th, the family had rented the hall at her church, arranged round tables for 47 people, and hung a banner that read, 80 years of Soon-Yi, in both English and Korean. There were flowers. There was catered Korean food from her favorite restaurant in the San Gabriel Valley. There was a slideshow on a projector screen. It was genuinely lovely. I arrived at 6, just as the room was filling. My mother saw me from across the room and did the thing she does. The wide smile deployed quickly enough to forestall any other expression. She hugged me and said, "You look tired." "I'm well, Mom, thank you." My father shook my hand. He smells like the same aftershave he has worn for 30 years, and for one disorienting second, I was 12 years old in a grocery store. Then I wasn't. Claire was at the center table with her fiancé. She waved. "Viv, you came!" The implication, that my presence was uncertain, optional, potentially avoided, was so perfectly, unconsciously Claire that I almost smiled. "I was invited," I said. Dinner moved the way these dinners move, slowly and warmly, old relatives catching up across tables, the slideshow cycling through my grandmother's life, my grandmother herself seated at the center of everything, with the composure of someone who understands that this night belongs to her and intends to inhabit it fully. At 8 o'clock, my Uncle Stephen tapped his glass. Vivian is going to say a few words on behalf of Halmony. I stood up. The room settled. 47 faces turned toward me. My grandmother, at the head of the center table, looked at me with the steady warmth she has always offered as a kind of inheritance. I said, "My grandmother asked me to speak tonight because she wanted someone who would be honest. She told me that at 80, she has no more patience for people who say the gracious thing instead of the true thing. So I'm going to try to honor that." I looked around the room. My mother's smile had gone still. My father was watching me with an expression I recognized as careful. 6 weeks ago, on my birthday, I was removed from our family group chat. I said it simply, without drama. I was removed because, and I'm quoting here, I had been bringing down the mood. Because the divorce I went through 4 years ago went on forever. Because someone in the family felt I might make a big deal of it. The room was very quiet. I know this because I could still see the chat history. All 40 minutes of it. I opened the folder. I printed it. I have it here. I did not read every message. I want to be clear about that. I am not a person who takes pleasure in humiliation, and this was my grandmother's birthday, not a trial. But I read 4 lines. My father's line. My mother's first message. Claire's, "It's not mean, it's just boundaries, LOL." And my Aunt Linda's is, "This mean? It feels a little mean." 47 people heard those words in the voice of the person who had been removed. My Aunt Linda put her hand over her mouth. I set the folder down. "I'm not telling you this to punish anyone," I said. "I'm telling you because my grandmother has spent 80 years building a family that she intended to be a place of honesty and real love, and I think she deserves to know what that family actually looks like in a group chat on a Tuesday morning." I turned to my grandmother. "Halmony, you are the reason I know what it feels like to be truly seen by someone. You called me on my birthday before the sun came up, and you sang to me in Korean, and you have done that every single year of my life. I want to say, in front of everyone who loves you, you got it right. Whatever you were trying to build, you built it. It just didn't always get passed down." My grandmother's eyes were bright. She said in Korean something that translates roughly to, "I know. I have always known." I sat down. The room stayed quiet for a long moment. Then my cousin James, who is 24 and has never once been at the center of anything, started clapping. A few others followed. Not everyone. This was not a movie, but enough. Enough for the shape of the evening to have changed. My mother left the room for a few minutes. My father sat very still. Claire was looking at the table in front of her with the expression of someone who has just understood something she preferred not to understand. My Aunt Linda found me by the dessert table later in the evening. She said, "I should have said something at the time. When I said it feels a little mean, I should have said it louder." "Yes," I said, "you should have." She nodded. She didn't make excuses. I found I respected that. In the 2 weeks after my grandmother's dinner, I received a long email from my mother. It was 7 paragraphs. 5 of them were about her own feelings. One was a qualified acknowledgement that the timing had been, perhaps, insensitive. One, at the very end, said, "I know we have not always made you feel as celebrated as you deserved." I read it 3 times. I wrote back 4 sentences. "Thank you for the email. I'd like to speak in person when we're both ready. I need the relationship to be different going forward. More honest, more equal, less managed. I'm open to trying if you are." She wrote back 1 word. "Okay. We are, as of now, trying. It is not easy, and it is not the mother-daughter relationship I spent most of my life wishing for. But it is real in a way it never was before, and I will take real, overperformed any day." The federal grant was officially awarded 8 weeks after my grandmother's dinner. $2.3 million over 3 years. My team celebrated with dinner and bad karaoke and genuine joy. I did not call my family to share the news. I texted my grandmother. She replied with a single emoji, the woman raising her hand. I have that screenshot saved too. Today I live alone in a clean apartment in Pasadena, 12 minutes from my grandmother's house, where I have Sunday dinner most weeks. I have a team I am proud of, work that matters to me, and the hard-won knowledge that belonging to a family is not the same as being valued by one, and that the difference, once you see it, cannot be unseen. My grandmother is 80 years old. She still does the crossword in pen. She still calls me on my birthday before the sun comes up, and she still sings. That is enough. That has always been enough. I just couldn't hear it over all the noise. If you have ever been the difficult one, the sensitive one, the one someone else decided was too much to include, I want you to know, the people who remove you from rooms were never the ones keeping you. The people keeping you are the ones who call it sunrise. Find them. Stay close. Stop performing smallness for an audience that was never applauding you anyway. You deserve to take up space. You always did. Thank you so much for staying until the end. If this resonated with you, please like and subscribe. I want to know, have you ever had to speak a hard truth in front of people who weren't ready to hear it? What happened? Drop it in the comments below. Until next time, you are allowed to read the messages out loud. You are allowed to be seen.